Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Joe Fest. I'm the Economic Development Director. If some of you could see, please forgive. There's a little shiner on my left eye, so it's not from a scuffle over the budget. Last night I was playing with my German Shepherd, throwing the ball around the house, and the two of us decided to collide. Glasses went flying, and I saw a couple stars, and she just looked at me. And I sat down, and then she started licking me. But so this is not from anything else. Actually, I didn't even know I had it until the city manager looked at me and said, "Joe, should we be talking about something?" And I said, "I don't know, sure." And we got into that discussion. But thank you for coming. This is our second round. I would like to thank all the speakers for giving us their time today, their expertise, and spending the afternoon with us. Again, this is a series, so we have a couple more coming up. We appreciate you coming. There are some refreshments in the back. I would like to thank again the Chamber of Commerce and Medco for working with me on this. As we've said, it is a team effort, everything we do, with Tom and the Medco board and everyone on it, and Roseanne and the Chamber of Commerce and all the members, which a lot of you are here today. So I am not one to make long-winded speeches. So again, thank you, and I'll come back on at the end. And I would like to introduce Dale, who will be running our thing for today.
Thanks. I didn't know we had Phil Donahue here, for those of you who remember. Okay, we're back for round two. It's good to see the same folks back and a few new people. We have a variety of speakers, and as Joe said, big thanks to all the speakers, and thanks for coming back. This is the second of 5 sessions we're going to have. This is called Meriden Visioning. Hopefully we'll come out with a strategic plan going forward. The resumes for the speakers are on your table. Rather than take the time to just read somebody's resume, take a look at it. We have some interesting folks. What they're going to do is kind of go through their slides and talk about how it relates to Meriden, and we're going to probably focus on some of the key properties that came up in the last conversation. 24 Colony, One King, and the Mall. And they will have whatever they can offer to help solve the problems or just make a contribution. That'll be great. So I'm going to introduce the first speaker, Jenny Kozlowski. Jenny is the Executive Director of Rex Development, our regional economic development organization.
Okay, so do I use this microphone or do I use this microphone?
We're not hearing you back here.
I guess I'll use this microphone. Hi, as Dale said, I am Jenny Kozlowski. I'm the Executive Director of the Regional Economic Development Organization that's known as Rex Development. I've been on board since 2010, and some days it seems like 100 years, and other days it seems like it's about a week. One of our responsibilities is development of the Regional Comprehensive Economic Development Strategy, which is an economic development tool that serves the South Central region, which is from Milford to Madison to Meriden. We make a nice little triangle. If you could go to the next slide. Here is the list of towns that are in our region, and we submitted our last 5-year plan in 2023. We just shared with the Council of Governments yesterday our annual update, and I'm going to get it to Joe so that he can share it with you. It shows our progress around our goals and objectives, where we have some challenges and where we've had some success. This is also a requirement for funding through EDA and other federal programs. Actually, one of Joe's predecessors did the first comprehensive economic development strategy a few years back, Peggy Brennan, and you should celebrate the fact that a town took that on. The eligibility for these projects is essential because EDA funds on the basis of distress a lot of times, so having this information available to Meriden and the region certainly helps. Next slide. So for those of you who don't know the size of our region or the population, we're just under 600,000, and Meriden has 60,000 people. One of the things that we saw during COVID is that our population pretty much was stable. Some towns saw a slight increase, some towns saw a slight decrease. One of the towns that saw the most reduction in population was North Branford, which sort of doesn't correlate to anything, but when we look at the data, we try to look for trends. The number of households are 25,000, and the size of our households are shrinking. As we are aging and our children are leaving, we're not having as many folks have children. The size of the households are smaller. The regional per capita income is just under 47,000, and in Meriden it's just about 36,000. We've seen a substantial increase in the per capita income for our region, but we still have municipalities that are behind some other municipalities. Madison, Guilford, Woodbridge, their per capita income is much higher. And our median age, we had a slight drop this year. We went from 40.5 in the region to 40.4. So we're celebrating that. And here in Meriden, it's 40. So the two factors that are going to determine our growth are workforce and jobs and housing. In terms of how many open jobs, when we did this report a number of months ago, it was 75,000 open jobs across the state. And the most needed position is RNs, which is not something that you can quickly fill. And in terms of where we are today, it's closer to the 90,000 open jobs because we're seeing that seasonality kick in. In 2019, we had workforce about 315,000, and post-COVID, we're up to 317,000. And there was a slight increase in Meriden, and I think this is part of our challenge, is how do we get more people into the workforce? Unemployment, we're pretty much on par with the state of Connecticut, and Meriden is pretty much on par with the region at 4.2. And we have all these great programs through workforce that would provide folks with the opportunity to have a higher level of earnings, but we're not getting folks to participate. And I think that's something as a group you can look at to determine a pathway to get people involved in these. Many of them are free, many of them provide stipends, or they provide daycare or childcare, but people are not taking advantage of all these opportunities. In 2019, the median house price in the region was $215, and for Meriden, it was $163. You've gone up to $265,000, which for your grad list is a benefit, but it's also locking people out of the market. I was saying to Roseanne earlier, when I came to the meeting today, I was so impressed to see all the things that have happened over the last few years. There have been a lot of money invested, the park, the apartments, the flooding. Celebrate your success, and part of the success is that people want to live here and that your housing prices are increasing. We have insufficient amount of affordable housing, which I know Meriden does a great job working with the state of Connecticut to get more housing, affordable housing in the region, and they also participate with the Southern Connecticut Regional Council of Governments Housing Committee. If we all work together, we're going to improve the quality of life for everyone in the region. Our key sectors, healthcare. We've seen Yale New Haven Health expand, and Hartford Health also expand, so they're like in a race. We've seen them increase their number of locations across the region, but we also are aware that we're still waiting for appointments because there's such a backlog from COVID. Higher education, eds and meds. We have a number of institutions of a higher learning, and if you look at the first line, there's a minimal decrease in the number of students enrolled. But then when you look at Southern, Gateway, and Alberta's, where most of our workforce does come from and stays here, they have significant declines in enrollment. Our bioscience, which is one of our leading sectors here, has seen substantial investment by the National Institutes of Health. And 46% of the bio companies in Connecticut are based here in this region, so we need to celebrate that as well. Manufacturing, which is very important to Meriden, is going through a transition to 4.0. We're gonna see AI become more involved, but we need to put more kids in that pipeline to work in manufacturing. And it's not dirty manufacturing, it's clean manufacturing. Today we had a meeting with the new director of tourism for the state of Connecticut, and she shared with the group that folks have not returned to our theaters, and they are struggling. We need to help people become aware of all the assets, cultural assets we have, because it's one of the quality of life issues that will bring more businesses and more people here. Meriden has the third largest concentration of hotels in the region, which is a great thing. But we need to get more visitors into these hotels and bring business back to travel. In 2021, you can see the numbers at the bottom. Meriden had 600 new businesses start, and in 2023, 735. Celebrate that. That's new opportunity, especially in an economy where unemployment is low. In 2008, 2010, during the last recession, when people didn't have jobs, a lot of people started businesses, but then they left those businesses when the economy improved and they got a regular job. Even in this low unemployment, and we're out of COVID more or less, we're still seeing a lot of people start these businesses, which is a wonderful thing. In terms of our regional partnerships, we have 3 sector partnerships that are underway in the region. Bio, life sciences, and manufacturing. It's a collective effort from the governor's office under Good Jobs Challenge, and it's led by the industry. I would encourage you to get involved. If you want more information, we'll be happy to share it. As I said, the Housing Committee at SCROG is working on a regional housing plan to bring more housing to the region. One of the things you'll see in our Senate report is that we've expanded the access to broadband. It became very apparent early in COVID that many people just couldn't afford it. So they worked and they developed a number of programs and supplemented those programs so that more people can have broadband. Tweed, I know you have an airport, but we do have commercial service coming out of New Haven. There's 25 destinations. We expect 550,000 employments this year, up from 29,000 in 2019. It's easy, it's close. You are in a perfect location because you have Bradley to your north and Tweed to your south. And then the investment in 91, 691, and 15. I'm sure you're thrilled.
Will be when it's done.
Having gone over the Q Bridge for a number, well, actually, having sat trying to go over the Q Bridge for a number of years, it does make a difference. And then another challenge for the region, and because you also access Route 15, Heroes Tunnel is a problem. We have to have a plan so that we don't disrupt those businesses along that Route 15 corridor. It is a focus of COG and obviously all the towns along Route 15. Our expansion of new businesses is Arvinas, which is an oncology company that came out of Yale that is going through clinical trials for breast cancer treatment and prostate cancer. They started in an old manufacturing site at Science Park that used to make guns. Now they're making oncology treatments. They have space there. They're about ready to finish a building in downtown New Haven that took out the highway. And they've had so much success that they're not giving up their space at Science Park, and they're taking all their space at 101. So again, that continued investment brings success. Sustainability, ongoing challenge in Connecticut. We're old towns. We've got a few brownfields that we're cleaning up. Rex received its first brownfield revolving loan fund for 48 Pratt Street. I'm really dating myself, right, Dale? So I think, again, use your assets to help you grow. And having brownfield, there's many brownfield programs. Juliet, who used to be here, also garnered a lot of money to help those brownfields get cleaned up and put back to productive reuse. In terms of challenges, the folks on the municipal side, we're in the middle of budget season, which is always a pleasant experience. Joe's really blaming the dog for the black eye, but maybe not. Expiring ARPA funding is a challenge on these budgets. That money wasn't quote unquote extra money, it was money that was needed and is still needed. The state has a gap projected coming up, which is gonna make next year's budgeting process even more challenging. Static population, older population, need different and new services. Diversity, equity, and inclusion, even though we saw participation in workforce go up, we still need to bring more people on board. Roseanne shared that she had a job fair yesterday for high school students, but the lowest participation rate in workforce is the 18 to 24-year-olds. We need to have them start getting into the workforce earlier, because over a lifetime, they'll earn so much more money. Sustainability, brownfield regulations. Evan's gonna talk about that, how it impacts the real estate, and we have to, again, we're fortunate that Connecticut is investing in cleaning up these brownfields. And another budget issue for the municipalities is solid waste. The tipping charges are expensive, so we need a statewide plan. And then climate change, cybersecurity, and disaster preparedness. These are ongoing things that are municipal issues that they're addressing. And again, volunteer, and then our aging infrastructure. We have money from the infrastructure bill, but it takes time and it'll continue to take resources. They do questions at the end?
Yeah, we'll do questions. Unless somebody has a question now, it's fine. I'll take this first.
I'm sorry.
What Ginny didn't really talk about too much, is that Rex Development is very involved with business retention, but very involved in business attraction. And the reason I bring that up is that most successful programs in the United States are regionally based. If you go down south, we don't have county government technically in Connecticut, but the counties work together, the towns in a group work together to bring industry. So what may seem important to New Haven and not to Meriden is really important to Meriden when you work together. The other thing I just want to bring up is the data is important, and we're going to, at the end of all these sessions, we're going to work on a strategic plan with many of you to take the data so it plugs into some sort of a strategy. When Ginny was talking, I kept thinking, workforce. That's the big thing I talked about. And when you talk about any of the properties that we've been discussing here, and I've talked with Medco and Joe and Roseanne about the job creation is really important. So the other side of the coin is business retention. Keeping the businesses that are already here and helping them grow. I've been working in the 15 towns, and some of the towns have a decline in their grand list because they did not pay attention to business retention. People retire, people sell their businesses, COVID killed a lot of businesses. So business retention for most economic developers is job one. So to talk a little bit more about business retention, I'm going to bring up Lisa Mercurio, and she will introduce herself.
I'm just going to take your glasses. Great. Hi, everyone. I'm Lisa Mercurio. I'm Vice President of Business Development for Advanced CT. And to step a little bit back from Ginny's overview of Meriden and the region, I wanted to give you a quick overview of Advanced CT. We are a private, not-for-profit economic development organization. We are, oh, you're welcome to, thank you. Yeah, please. We are, oh, there we go. We are funded a little less than 50% by the State Department of Economic and Community Development and 50% by the private sector. So, yes.
Would you mind holding the microphone?
Of course,
So we
of
can
course.
hear you better?
Sure, no problem. So we're funded 50%, 52% by the private sector and a little less than 50% by the State Department of Economic and Community Development, if you haven't heard me on that. And so that is an intentional decision that was made to be able to bring the private and public sector together, both on our board and in our planning executions for the years, to have both, the sort of input from both sectors as we look at how to help businesses here stay and grow. So we are a relatively new organization. We're a little over 4 years old. The first 2 years were focused completely on COVID recovery for businesses. We are really in our infancy at about 3 years in our mission to serve both businesses in the state as well as work to attract businesses to the state. As I had mentioned, we are working at a statewide level, so where Ginny is focused on economic development within the region, we are looking at bringing and helping businesses succeed in Connecticut throughout the 169 towns. So what we aim to do is work with a host of organizations, so regional economic development organizations such as REX, to business organizations from CBIA to chambers of commerce, and touching on the workforce topic more and more with regional workforce development boards, with regional sector partnerships, and a variety of workforce training providers, as well as higher education institutions. We work closely with the DECD. We meet weekly with the Department of Economic and Community Development to review projects that we are working on. And so to get into Dale's sort of preface on retaining businesses, we have 2 real missions for the organization. One is to, as I mentioned, attract businesses to the state. That is an area that we sort of increased focus on. And then the second is working to meet with the businesses located in Connecticut and helping them with the resources that can help them to grow and stay here. So obviously, having a customer is obviously much more important to make sure that we keep them. It's much more expensive to get a new customer, as we all know. So our focus is really understanding and appreciating the businesses and the services that they provide throughout the state so that we can keep them in Connecticut. And so we have a team of 4 people. We focus on meeting with businesses face to face. We go to their locations. I've been from Killingly to Greenwich, not in one day, but over the course of a week, we are on the road meeting with business owners to hear what their challenges are, and workforce is clearly top of mind. With that, we actually just invested in a full-time workforce development director who is going to be our key point in connecting businesses to the entry-level and worker-level people that they need in their offices and in their factories and on their sites. So we are excited to be able to do that and welcome questions from any of you as business owners if you are looking for assistance in that manner. We also assist businesses by looking for sites if they are needing to expand or to leave a site based on their tenancy. We will help them look for sites as well. Also, there are resources available from the state. There are a lot of resources available from the state. Our job is to help a business navigate those resources. They have a business to run. Their job is not to figure out which website to go to. That is our job, so that we will connect them to the RECs, to chambers, to Small Business Development Center, to Women's Business Development Center. Depending on the resources they need, we will make those introductions for them and sort of follow them through the process, because it's often a multi-step issue. So I wanted to give you an overview on that, so hopefully that's helpful. So yeah, please. Oh, I guess it's one of those type of slides. Oh, interesting. So anyways, well, it works. the key words are highlighted. But essentially, this is an incomplete slide, but our main function, as we're saying, are making those connections, providing the resources to, all with the intent of growing businesses and allowing individuals to find careers here in the state. So. We'll skip that one, hopefully. Yeah. So, as I mentioned, we are a relatively new organization with two streams of work, and business attraction and business retention and expansion. We also have a research team and a marketing team. So the research has been a core part of what we do. The real history of the organization is to be able to tell the narrative of Connecticut, to tell Connecticut's story. We've got phenomenal successes, phenomenal legacy innovations and new innovations that we want to make sure that companies and other communities are aware of. So we've spent a great deal of time looking at where we are in the marketplace so that Connecticut is telling our own story. It's not, there's always evolution in the corporate cycle, so there are going to be negative headlines, but our real intent is to tell the story of Connecticut as we know it, and so that's heavily data driven. We have a research team of 4 people. They work to help build together stories and pitch decks for companies as we look to recruit companies to the state. So there are a lot of different selling points, quality of life, workforce, all the key attributes that an economy has, where our goal is to bring that to those businesses to highlight what we have to offer. And we do that also with Connecticut-based businesses. Marketing is an interesting component, and the marketing has really been, again, marketing Connecticut, letting the world essentially know that Connecticut is here. Connecticut has resources for businesses from labor to the quality of life attributes that I've mentioned. So it's really being in the marketplace and letting people know what Connecticut has to offer. A lot of our focus is that's relatively new, I guess is the best way to say. We've been in a lot of foreign markets recently as we look to encourage foreign direct investment. So we currently have a life sciences lead on our business attraction team that has been in Ireland and Switzerland these last 2 weeks at bioscience shows to be able to tell the story about Connecticut, what resources are here from the academic institutions to the workforce, etc. So that's a bit of what the marketing stands for. So this is sort of the data that I wanted to share because I think it's important. And so we also have sort of a collection of data points. So we work on projects. We work to recruit businesses here, as you know, as well as to get businesses what they need that are here to expand. And so these are some examples of the companies that we have worked to bring in the last, I think it's the last 3 years in this, last year of this activity. So some interesting things that I wanted to highlight were the sectors, as you can see, that have seen most activity. So based on the projects per sector, I'm gonna have to put on my glasses, so my apologies. So for projects, out of that total number, 5 of them were in the financial services, 13 were in life sciences, 26 were in manufacturing, and tech was 7. There's an other category, about 30. Jobs, as you can see in the light blue, is also financial services at 59, life sciences at 391, manufacturing at almost 4,500, and tech at close to 300. We also look at the capital investment the business is going to be making, both as a reload in or as within the state. And so you can see life sciences, which is a heavy capital intensive at 49, manufacturing obviously much more intensive at 600 million, and tech at 13. So just also one thing that's helpful as you look at total categories, the manufacturing sector, out of this group of projects, there were a total of 18. That was the most in terms of a category. The most in new investments was also in the manufacturing sector at 8. Geographically within the state, East Hartford, New Haven, and Windsor had the most projects in the last year, with each about 5. Hartford County had the most projects by region in the last year at 35. And in terms of where the new investments are coming from, 4 came from companies relocating from New York, and 3 of them actually relocated their headquarters to Connecticut. And in terms of the foreign direct investment that I mentioned, the projects came from France, Germany, and Ireland at about 2 each. So it's just helpful to get a sense of the scale of what we are working on. And Project Tracker is actually a product of our marketing and research team. Prior to this program, we had not been sort of aggregating our projects or providing any sense of where the growth has been and what we've been able to, what the state has been able to accomplish in terms of growth. So it's been a very interesting thing to look at, but unfortunately we don't have a huge longitudinal since we just started it 3 years ago. In fact, one project we submitted for recognition was the first time they had said they'd ever seen a project from Connecticut. So again, it's getting all of our attributes in the hands of site selectors, of company, of real estate decision makers about what potential Connecticut has for them. So that, I think I have one more. And that just really gives you a sense of the private-public sector mix on our board. So we're very excited this year to have brought on, and I'm trying to see if it's been updated, but we've recently nominated, Infosys has joined our board as well as the CEO of ASML. So we've had 2 new additions to the board that will really flush out the sector representation.
One question.
Sure.
If you go back one slide,
Sure.
a large portion of what you see is back one slide, not forward, back. Yes, back. One more. Yeah, there you go. A large
Thank
portion
you,
of what
Dale.
you see on projects, jobs, and capex in particular are in the manufacturing sector.
Yes.
How much of that? We know that General Dynamics has been going gangbusters. My question is, how much of that is principally General Dynamics, or is it pretty well?
That's a good question. I don't know if they've pulled out by defense, say, but I can get back to you on that.
Yeah.
I mean, manufacturing clearly is a sector that is labor and capital intensive, so you are going to see the projects.
So if it's more diffuse, then there are opportunities for places other than on the shoreline,
Agreed.
on submarines to participate.
Agreed, yeah.
The other thing I would just point out is Unitex is a healthcare laundry service. Up until a number of years ago, Yale New Haven Health was sending their laundry to New Jersey. So over the past several years, a lot of it has been transferred, and a lot of it is much more than just washing sheets and towels. There's specialty laundry incurred in the treatment of patients, and you're going to continue to see that sector grow, and it will be bringing more jobs, and it's very capital intensive.
Yeah. That's it. Thank you. That is it. Thank you.
We will definitely leave time for questions, and one of the questions I'm going to ask Lisa, but not right this second, is what can Advanced CT do for Marion? It seemed to me it would be a really good opportunity for them to come and sit down and be part of the sector analysis of the city. Because this level of detail is statewide, and I think, to move forward now, you know what they do, and now is a good idea to bring them forward to you guys. Okay, all set. Okay, the next speaker, we invited Evan O'Brien from Cushman & Wakefield. He's got slides, he'll do his introductions himself, but I thought it would be good to have Cushman particularly because of the properties that were mentioned in the first session, either 24 Colony or One King or even the mall. And Evan and his partner do a lot of work with the conversion of buildings, and changing the use within buildings, which is a big issue, whether it's a small strip center or a large old hospital building. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Evan.
We on here, Joe? Testing. Good evening. My name's Evan O'Brien, Cushman and Wakefield. As Dale mentioned, my partner and I specialize in commercial real estate in the greater New Haven market. I've been working this market for about 20 years. I happen to grow up in Middletown, so I'm very familiar with Meriden. Thanks a lot, Dale and John and Roseanne for having me here tonight, and appreciate Ginny and Lisa being here as well. Dale put together a great panel to kind of cover at the state level, local level, and then I'll kind of drill down on kind of the commercial real estate. So I will say that Ginny. I will say that Ginny's group, Rex Development, as well as Lisa's group, Advanced CT, they're complete powerhouses in the state and particularly in the region. We partner with them all the time. In fact, I work with Ginny, my partner and I, pretty regularly, and also moved Advanced CT when they moved from Rocky Hill down to New Haven. So Lisa and I just caught up on that, so that was pretty cool. So the greater New Haven office market, which is my specialization. I do some healthcare as well, and also a bunch of conversion type work that Dale alluded to. The overall market is just under 11 million square feet, as you see here, and that includes Class A and B buildings. It doesn't include your 2,000 square foot retail store on the corner. We're typically tracking buildings that are 10,000 square feet or larger. And the next number is we're showing is the overall vacancy, which is not bad. It's a little over 18%. So what I did is I took a look at the last 19 years and kind of put the metrics up side by side for a good visual, so you just kind of understand the overall health of the market, from 19 years ago to today. And if you see it, there's really not much change. There hasn't been a ton of new construction. There's only about 600,000 square feet of new leasable buildings, and the vacancy rate, surprisingly, is basically the same. The rents have increased, but that's a little bit misleading because what's happened over the last 20 years is operating expenses and taxes have gone up. Therefore, owners of these buildings aren't profiting as much as they were 20 years ago, even though their rates have increased by $4.50 a foot. The overall northern New Haven County vacancy rate is a little bit, two percentage points. It's at 20% today. Typically, the northern New Haven County market is the first market to be impacted in a downturn, in a recession, economic recession, and the first to recover. We've seen a decent amount of activity over the last 12 to 18 months in the northern New Haven market on the office side. Guilford Savings Bank just bought a building in Wallingford, 35,000 foot building that they're going to occupy and then lease a small piece of space. And then also the town of Wallingford bought an office building that was about 40,000 feet that they're converting to the police station. Some of these other numbers are just, absorption, the amount of space that's taken, throughout each year or quarter. And then we're showing kind of the buildings under construction. Most of that is in New Haven. And then the asking rates, $23.50 a foot. So you could again, this is, overall New Haven County, just kind of breaking down each section of the county, northern, eastern, the New Haven CBD, what you can see is at a very healthy point right now. It's about 11.5%. That's fueled by, as Ginny alluded to, Meds and Eds, Yale University, Yale New Haven Hospital, and all the folks that kind of serve those organizations, law firms, financial services, tech companies. The non-CBD, which is kind of some of the smaller buildings surrounding the central business district, is about 20% plus or minus. The western New Haven office market is having the toughest time. That's kind of West Haven, Milford, Orange. That's at almost 30%, which is certainly not good. Sales and leasing is somewhat slow, but there is a lot of positive developments in the region. I think New Haven County's definitely fared better with COVID and the last few years than Hartford County and Stamford. Go ahead, Dale. This is a chart on the overall asking rents and vacancy over the last 19 years, and as you can see, vacancy rates dropped significantly in 2016, 2017. But as far as rates go, there hasn't been a ton of change in the rates over the last 20 years. Probably $3-4 a foot. So this is a slide of kind of what's happening all over the country, the repositioning and repurposing of buildings to kind of the highest and best use. It's kind of a changing of the guard with a lot of these kind of functionally obsolete buildings. A lot of these pictures you probably recognize some of the buildings just in driving by some of them in your travels. But the first one is the Pirelli building. That's down on 95 in New Haven. That was the Pirelli Tire headquarter building. That's now a boutique hotel. 4060 Temple was built as the Temple Medical Center. That was purchased a few years back by a developer that's doing a lot of the life science in New Haven. This third photo is probably the site that's closest to us here in Meriden. This is the former Bristol Myers site in Wallingford, and they're proposing to do industrial there. The fourth one is that was demolished probably 5-6 years ago now in Middletown. That's now a FedEx facility. That's the former Aetna campus. And then we're seeing a ton of apartments, particularly in New Haven, but in the suburbs as well. This is the old Comcast building on the corner of I want to say Chapel, kind of near the Worcester Square area, and that's now residential. And then the last site is the Stu Leonard site down in West Haven, Orange, that's now a FedEx. So we're seeing a ton of that, the conversions. And that's kind of all I have. Happy to kind of talk about.
Talk about King.
Yeah. So 1 King Street, Dale had mentioned that there's kind of 3 properties that he wanted to address tonight. Very familiar with the property. Took a drive by it before I pulled into the Meriden Library here, and it's a challenging one, as I'm sure you all know. But happy to answer any questions that anybody has and give my opinion.
I'll ask, but I think I know the answer, but it's a little deep. Cleans building down, easier to acquire new?
Absolutely. I mean, what you have to go through as a developer or an investor when you have a building of that size, with whatever's underground and whatever's in the building, the cost is staggering. So, taking it down is obviously, I would say, in my professional opinion.
And it's been remediated inside but not outside, correct?
But is there a risk in, you take that building down, you have a piece of land in an area of town, that who wants to develop?
Well, I mean, I guess you either take it down or...
I'm just,
It's
you
a
know,
rhetorical question.
it's a rhetorical question because, I mean,
Well, I mean, it's
somebody gave
been...
me a piece of land there, I wouldn't do anything.
Is the building, can you, I'm just asking, because I don't know that well, can you demo part of the building or is it all?
We've had discussions and gone after DCE wanting to do it, but basically what we've been told is come up with a plan and then come back to us, and we'll talk about the demolition part of it. There's probably 2 pieces we could leave standing. It was a mixed feeling on the council of which way to go with that. The part that I had suggested to keep up was the original nurses hospital, which is the older piece, and then tear down the rest of it and redo. And I thought of leaving the parking garage, because depending on what the use would be afterwards, it needs some maintenance, but it's not deteriorating. It just needs maintenance.
Right.
So we've been toying back and forth was next, and I'll plug now. We're gonna be coming to you to talk about this a little bit further as well. So,
But there's also activity in that area, partly spurred a $50 million investment by the city right next door on the other side of the street to take down another set of buildings and build a new senior center and complex in there.
I saw the remediation sign.
Oh, well, never mind.
A couple things for sure is that, sort of to your point, first of all, developers don't put money into something that has no value. So if they're gonna put money into remediation, that has no value. They only put money into the rehab, that has value. On the other hand, a vacant site cannot appraise to raise financing, you know, because you have a building that you can work on.
So Dale, if you could toggle back to 2 slides, I'll kind of tell a quick story that's relevant. Oh, actually, 1 slide, I'm sorry. So we sold this Pirelli building right on 95. It was owned by IKEA. They were our client. We brought IKEA to New Haven. And part of the land sale was they acquired this great, phenomenal parcel of land, but they had to buy it. This building was included. So it sat vacant for years since IKEA built their store. And there was all kinds of folks that didn't want to take it down because it has architectural relevance. And so we ended up selling it to a developer, Becker & Becker, out of Fairfield. And he converted it to a boutique hotel, but we sold it. And we sold it for, I think it was $1.2 million because the remediation cost was so staggering. So we actually got paid on the remediation cost as well as the building sale. You know, so that's just like the old hospital.
But I mean, from the city's perspective, if you gave the hospital away, developer comes in, they have a low cost base on it, they can make money, and the city gets tax base on it.
And you're saying that you're a proponent of keeping it.
I would just, let the developer figure out how to solve the problem.
Well, what's interesting of these slides that I see here, we all, Jenny and I in particular, are familiar with, we were listening to Wally for years talk about Bristol Myers when they left. So notice it says proposed warehouse.
Right.
So this is a case where the building was in way better shape than one came, but it's big, 800,000 square feet. It's like an enormous situation. And maybe is there more to the story? Because I don't think they have 100% of it planned, or maybe they do. Because this is sort of tells the story of where you're going. It's going to be several things. It's not going to be one thing, probably.
I mean, the industrial developer that bought this is in the Boston area. They leveled it. They said, you know, this building's functionally obsolete. We're going to level it and look for the next, you know, whether it be an Amazon or, you know, Amazon did try to go there and it got shot down.
But that site has a lot of intrinsic value. I mean, it's close to transportation.
Right off of
Agreed.
I mean, it's a brilliant site.
I hear what you're saying as far as keeping it, but if I'm a developer looking at that site and you know, there's an existing building that's been there vacant since 1998. I mean, I'm saying you got to pay me to take that.
That's what
I'm not going to take it for $1.
Well, $1, pay somebody to take it and figure it out.
Like your junk car.
Is there any cost on the remediation
Well, we know
or the demolition?
we know what's going on in the building. It was done.
We've done everything inside. Our last estimate, and this is going back, Mike, 3 years ago, did I get that estimate, roughly? I think roughly around 3 years ago, we were a little bit above 6.2, 6.4 million.
For the land?
For the demo of the building.
So it's hazardous waste then.
No, that's
Just
down
demo.
clean. You said that's just demo. The building itself, except for one corner, is perfectly clean. We already did the remediation.
So who knows
Ground up.
who knows what's beneath the ground? Sam, do you know?
I looked at that and we weren't involved, but I think there's an underground storage tank and
Yeah.
maybe a few other minor things, not a lot.
Not a lot. So that's good news. Jenny had her hand.
So we were involved in Bristol Myers after they had vacated the site, and we took countless people through the site that were related to bio. And it was a fire sale, clearly, and we still couldn't find anybody to take it in its current state with that building on it, even though it was appraised at X. And Bristol Myers was still paying the town of Wallingford.
So they didn't get right.
So that it was in Bristol Myers' best interest to get rid of that building and then to give the new buyer took it down, right?
Yeah, the new buyer,
So
so.
then that changed the appraisal, so now at least you have an empty site.
I get it, but I'm saying like, the city has to pay 6.4 to take the building down.
It's a big number.
I'm with you, pay $3 million for somebody to take it and invest in it. You save half the building you would pay, and you have a kid.
But the first thing, if I'm a developer, the first thing I'm gonna say was, what do you have for prices for demolition and asbestos?
Well,
You know,
developer probably pay a lot less than the city will, because they're not gonna be paying
agreed.
prevailing wages and stuff, but I
Agreed.
mean, but you make it somebody else's problem, the city shouldn't be in development.
So let's
Explore.
turn the challenge to an opportunity. So Joe, if I were to guess, either all big buildings in different locations, mostly, you don't have, besides King, you don't have a lot, you have more 40,000 square foot buildings, 50,000 square foot, rather than the 300,000 square foot buildings. So assuming that's the case.
That is correct. I mean, the city, we have to remember, we're an old city. And most of our land over the years, if I had to come up with a figure, I bet you we're at 5% vacancy of developable properties that can be done that are vacant.
Right.
And then maybe a couple old 25,000 square foot or less old mills.
So the scary part of the market, and you know, you see this probably, and we'll see this more in Hartford area, and I mean, Evan's the expert, but I see it as an economic developer. People don't need that much space anymore. I mean, it really is not as needed as it was. For manufacturing, distribution, absolutely. But for many other uses, the white collar jobs, healthcare, you know, even that's dispersed in the hospital system. So your challenge is what are you going to do with the 40,000 square foot buildings, 25,000 square foot buildings? I don't know if you have any thoughts on where Mary.
Yeah, I mean, I think what you're referring to is kind of the stuff that is in the immediate area here downtown. You know, the old storefronts with, you know, 2-3 stories above. You know, you could do apartments. You know, I mean, it's the days of, you know, having accountants and law firms in those. You know that those days are kind of over. We're seeing just a flight to quality. You know, we're seeing, you know, a tenant that's in 50,000 today, whether it be a law firm or an insurance company or a tech company, we're seeing that they want to be in the best possible building, you know, to attract talent, to attract young people. That's what we're seeing. You know, Wallingford, I have campus at Green Hill. It's a 300,000 foot building on the other side of the highway from this. And to Ginny's point, you know, it's functionally obsolete because they can go and lease an office building that was built 12, 13 years ago that's, you know, got heating and cooling coming from the floor, you know, a fitness facility, a cafeteria, state of the art. You know, so why would they want to, you know, come in and retrofit a building that was built in 1980?
So one last question, because I want to move on to Scott, the last speaker, but then we're going to have more questions and conversation about it. Is when you have a monster like that, what are you going to do? Demo part of it, demo all of it. I agree with you about the demo, partial demo, but keep some of the building, because it's not going to appraise as anything, it's just going to be raw land, basically, at the end of the day. How does a town, what would you suggest a town, maybe for all the speakers, do with this? Have a workshop with developers, letters of expression of interest, to just get people in the room to talk about what's real in the marketplace. The folks that are here come from a variety of backgrounds, jobs, you know, nonprofits, for-profits. You know, what do you do with such a monster when it's like an unsolvable problem? You know, what do you think the city could do to move forward with planning for it?
Yeah, I think your suggestion's a good one. You know, send out a, you know, RFQ or RFP. You know, soliciting developers that would be interested in that property and see what they come back with. The market will tell you what it's worth, you know, and maybe you come back and, to Scott's point, you're better off writing someone a check for $3 million and taking the building.
Right.
You know, and you just save $3.5 million.
I'll just tell a quick story out of school. When I was in Hamden, one of my former mayors wanted to sell an old town building, and wanted me to clandestinely walk a developer through it, not tell anybody. Of course, you get within 5 feet of the building, the whole town, the gossip starts. I took somebody in after hours, all the staff was like, what's that, what's that? And he wanted to get $1 million for the building, and the developer asked for $1 million for the building. Okay, so, as I said in the first session a few weeks ago, part of being successful in economic development is recognizing who you are and working from the strengths that you have. The data is the data that Jenny presented. The information regarding business retention and attraction that Lisa talked about, and a lot of possibilities, but a lot of cold water potentially if you don't move things strategically. But the other thing I mentioned the last time is you can be successful if you think like a business. Try to think from their perspective. And I think the market, when it comes to properties, is going to tell you what is going to happen with these buildings. But we thought it would be a good idea to have a local business owner who's born and raised, right, in Meriden, who went away and came back, has a large business, is among the top 5 employers and taxpayers in town, I think somewhere in that vicinity. And I'm going to bring up Scott Sattler to talk about his company and get her perspective on the economy in Meriden. Come on down.
Put this on me and I'll work better.
I feel like growing up in an Italian family, I could probably nail this without a microphone, but I won't do it. There's probably a lot of you who don't know who Ragazzino Foods is. People know the company. People don't know who we've become. I left Meriden probably in my 30s, early 30s. Left for a while, came back. The company's a totally different thing than it used to be. And so I thought I'd just take a minute to walk you through who we've become, a little bit of where we went, where we came from, and talk to you about where we are. So this is my great-grandfather's corner grocery store down in the corner of Springdale and Ames, the old Italian section down from Mount Carmel. This store is basically still, this is our test kitchen. That's my office. We're still here. But the building our business grew out of this building. We started by selling jarred spaghetti sauce. Not to poke fun at anybody, but an Irish gentleman came to my grandfather and tried to sell him jarred spaghetti sauce in an Italian neighborhood like it did not fly. My grandfather made him spaghetti sauce the Italian way, sold it to him. He ended up selling spaghetti sauce up and down the East Coast until Prego and Ragu came in and basically elbowed us out of the market. But we were selling spaghetti sauce, I think, until Wall Bombs went out and over near the mall. That was our last customer for the actual spaghetti sauce. I'm 4th generation. This is my Uncle John. He ran the business for a while and probably has bumped into a few people in this room. This was me when I was young and skinny. And when there was no child labor laws, so that's when we used to pack ravioli to my little sister. So who are we now? I can't, because of NDAs, I can't tell you everything. But we either make the food for or the direct competition to all of these brands up here. So, Darden, we can talk about. So we are one of Darden, the Olive Garden's top suppliers. We make their food internationally. We're one of their largest suppliers. We service the military. And then we cover a lot of these retail brands. So if you're in the freezer section in any grocery store in America, you're probably coming across something that we make. We do cover, we are not local. We are a full, really we're domestic. We do about 5% goes international, but we cover most of the grocery chains that you would ever come across as a consumer. There's 2 brands on here. We make lasagna for Walmart. We make it for HEB in Texas. A lot of what you'll see from us is private label. We don't have a brand anymore, so nobody sees the Ragazzino name. Nobody knows, unless you're smart enough to look at this little USDA label and it'll say Meriden. So we have essentially one site in town. It's about 7.5 acres. We have 2 facilities. One is the original store that we built a factory off of, or my grandfather built a factory off of. That's about 25,000 square feet. We then bought like Joe's grandfather's grandfather, right? Building next door and all the land down through the old bumper foundry, which we rehabbed, and we now make food there as well. That's about 65,000 square feet. We are woman-owned, we're family-owned. We have a lot of other endorsements that we have as a manufacturer. I thought I would give you guys some really relevant numbers to us. So, 95. We have, right now, a 95% diverse workforce, which when we talk to our customers is something that they get super excited about. It's something that we as we were Italian immigrants back when the Italians were the immigrants. And so it's something that we've stayed really true to. We, at one point, had a very large contingency from New Britain and Polish families. And now we have a lot of Latin American, but being part of an immigrant group to us is really important. And so the diversity that we keep is something that we really pride ourselves on. I'm one of the few middle-aged white males in the building at any given time. We have over 160 employees every day. So we have about 120 full-time employees. We have an outsourced service that does our sanitation overnight. That's about 20. And then we range anywhere from probably 10 to 40 temporary employees every day, depending on what we're making. We, over the past year and a half, have invested about $5 million in capital. Joe has been fantastic in helping us sort of figure out how to navigate a lot of the red tape in Meriden. We were an outdated manufacturer. You talk about manufacturing 4.0. We were a labor-intensive manufacturer. We couldn't compete with a lot of our, low-cost friends down in Texas and the Midwest. Electricity's cheap, labor's cheap. And so we've been investing heavily in modern equipment. There's a lot of robotics going in. We're doing a lot of environmentally friendly. We have one of the first CO2 refrigeration packages in the country. So it is a very green technology out of Denmark. I actually got a discount on it because we have to show it to everybody else as sort of a trophy. But Joe's seen it. It's state of the art. It's environmentally friendly, and that's been great. So we've been spending a lot in making sure that we're investing in the area. In 500,000, we make about 500,000 pounds of food every day on that site. So you see a lot of trucks coming in and out. We're moving through a lot of food every day. So that's a little bit about who we are. Now, we had a conversation about, what goes well, what doesn't go well in the city of Meriden. Is this the point where I'm supposed to go through that?
He is who you want to get.
Not really. But I've been, I got, what? So I got fired when I was like 24 from the family business. My generation grew up working in the family business. I went to Maloney. I went to school part-time at Quinnipiac, worked full-time. We were all very confident that we were just going to work for the family business forever, because why not? My parents' generation all kind of went to college, a year here, a year there, some thrown out, some didn't make it. But they were adamant that we all went to college, and then they were adamant that we all left. And the rule was you had to go get 5 years of real-world experience. So I left and I went to work for, I wanted to come back, so I went to work for Procter & Gamble, Diageo. I eventually went into consulting with McKinsey. And so I've been gone for about 20 years. I've been all over the world. I was kind of involved in the consulting side of that Bristol Myers building and making sure they got rid of it. So I've had my fingers in a lot of places. I've done a lot of things. I've missed producing something at the end of the day. a 250-page PowerPoint presentation is not the thing that you want to be working and spending your life on. During COVID, I ended up doing a lot of Zoom calls, 18 hours a day. Everybody was going bankrupt, had cash flow issues, and finally I was like, you know what? I can't take it anymore. I want to make something. I want to go back and work with my hands. So I came back to the family business. So I've been there for about 3 years. When I got there, the first thing that happened was my uncle, who you saw, Joe knows, said, I just bought a building in Tolland. It's fantastic. We're going to dump Meriden. We hate it. We're moving to Tolland. And I was like, no. So he and I had some pretty good fights, but logic prevailed. We laid out a plan on how we could stay in Meriden and make Meriden, a really viable option for ourselves. And so we've been doing a lot of work with the city, with Joe, on how we can expand. And so, we're in a position right now where we've been growing double digits for a couple of years. A lot of the competition is struggling. So we've seen Carla's Pasta, which was in South Windsor, go out. We've hired a bunch of their employees. And manufacturing is a tough life. And so, I love it. It's been fun. We're going to keep doing it. But, the city there's a lot of really great things about Meriden that make manufacturing good here. So one, logistically, halfway between New Haven and, Hartford, we're halfway between New York and Boston. We have major highways that run through us. It's easy for people to get here. There's an odd little thing that happens with trucking costs. So we have about 60 million people in the Northeast within call it a 5-hour drive of here. So a lot of trucks bring goods into this area and they leave empty. So we get good logistics rates depending on the time of year, getting our goods out of here. So if you're, in Texas trying to send stuff to Connecticut, it can be really expensive, but we're in Connecticut sending it back when the truck was going empty, we get good logistics rates. We have a lot of infrastructure, and I think, one of the things that's been really interesting is, our business demands a lot of support. So, Joe and I were talking, I think, I spend well into the 7 digits on local electricians, plumbers, HVAC. A lot of them are based in Meriden, like Cheshire doesn't have that type of infrastructure. Wallingford has a little of it, but most of our support that we use industrially, and we use a lot of it because we burn through a lot of equipment, comes out of Meriden. We're trying to develop a program with Wilcox right now, to get talent, and it's impossible because the kids are in such demand before they're even, seniors in high school. It's like they're pro basketball players. I talked to one kid who blew me away. He works in controls for advanced conveyor belts, which we use. But first year out of school, I think he made $150,000 a year working for Amazon. That is one of the drawbacks, is Amazon can afford to pay a heck of a lot more than I have. They've disrupted the labor market in terms of what we're paying, and especially when they first come in, they jack the rates up to get the employees in, then they back off, but everybody in the market sort of thinks that the rates have reset. And so we see a lot of people will just sit out on the sideline saying, we're not coming back and driving forklifts for you until you pay us $35 an hour, even though the market's back in the low 20s. And so Amazon, it's a struggle when a lot of those new businesses come in. But I see Meriden as, my grandfather ran New Departure on the other side, the Sattler side. It's a manufacturing town. I think there's a huge manufacturing base that's here. One of the things that I worked on as a consultant when I was with McKinsey, we did a lot of global strategy for companies. Manufacturing is coming back to the US in a big way. China's demographically exploding. Germany is demographically exploding, and they no longer have energy. And so I struggle on a day-to-day basis. If I need electronic parts, precision manufacturing, you can't get it from Germany. The wait times are, something like 40 weeks, 60 weeks. If you need cheap things out of China, the suppliers are giving you, it's much more expensive than it used to be. And so we're seeing manufacturing coming back to the US, and it's something that, gave me confidence that coming back to the family business was going to be a place where, you know, you could prosper. Like, I think manufacturing is going to, you know, I think you'll see in the next 10 years 20-30% growth in the industrial plant in the US. And something that's right now, I think they said the growth is faster than it actually was after or during World War II. And so we don't have the workforce for it though. And so that's where, you know, we need to make sure that there's skilled labor. Ginny, when you put up that Goodwin Tech is down 20%, I cringed. I'm happy that the higher education and people convincing everybody that going to work, you know, in white collar jobs is the way to go. I love when my plumbers come in and they're driving, you know, a brand new $80,000 truck, and the IT kid is driving this, you know, Honda Civic, and sorry anybody, but the blue collar jobs are making a lot of money right now, and we need that industrial base. The biggest risk I have right now is not having the technical experience to keep the plants running. Once I have a group of mechanics that are all sort of closer to retirement, and once they leave, I don't have the talent that can keep the plant running. And so, you know, we are very actively trying to figure out how we bring kids out of Wilcox, how do we develop the talent internally. But it actually creates a great opportunity. We're taking machine operators off the line, replacing the machine that they were working with that was really manual and bringing in something that's more automated, and teaching them how to run the automated equipment. Well, once they learn that, they understand the automation, they can start moving down. And so, you know, if you were to ask me where I think Ragazinos will be in 10 years, I'd love to be double the size we are now, you know, with hopefully some more employees, but I'd like to be able to put out 1 million pounds of food a day, you know, through automation, you know, be cost competitive with our, you know, with Texas and Indiana, a lot of the other states where
So what are some of your major needs to double? Besides workforce is a big one. Space, location.
Yes, space. I mean, and we're working on that now. So I think right now we're looking at putting up, you know, somewhere between a 60 and 80,000 square foot addition. We've looked at.
On top of.
How about King?
So wrong. You know, I need high ceilings and wide open. That's what I'm looking for. We looked at the Miller Company a while back. We were a little afraid to put food manufacturing in there based on what was in there previously.
You mentioned cold storage when I talked to you on the phone.
Yeah. So cold storage is a really interesting thing, right? There's a lot of frozen food. If you look in southern Massachusetts between Sturbridge and Worcester, there used to be 4 or 5 cold storage warehouses up there. They probably held a couple 100,000 pallets. Connecticut had New Haven Cold Storage, which was down in the old IKEA building, or that area. Food terminal. And you had Hartford, which was up, Hartford Freezers, which was up in East Hartford, which is now gone. In the last 5 years, I think they've built 400,000 pallets of capacity up in Massachusetts and 0 in Connecticut.
Didn't they build a
That's
vertical
true.
one in Plainville or a whole?
They did build a vertical one, but that's a private facility. So that is dedicated to Ahold, and that is its own facility. I'm talking public. So, you know, when the cranberry crop comes in before Thanksgiving, and you know, turkeys are frozen, there's a lot of public cold storage out there. And one of the reasons we ultimately bought the building in Tallinn was because it was a giant freezer warehouse. It was about half freezer and half office, and we just bought it so that we had the freezer space. We had about 3,000 pallets there. And the first thing that happened when we bought that building is people started calling us and saying, can we store there? So, you know, Lyman Orchards wanted his pies there. There's a Philo company wanted, you know, to put stuff there. And so there's a lot of demand for cold storage, and we thought Miller Building would be perfect to build, you know, a cold storage facility, easy on, easy off. And I think there are opportunities like that. So if you talk about how do you retain new businesses and bring in new businesses at the same time, I can tell you that if you brought a cold storage facility into central Connecticut, it helps me out and it helps me grow. Because right now we're looking at building 4,000 or 5,000 pallet storage facility on site. But if I had one in town, I'd probably just turn that into manufacturing base, which would help me grow faster.
No, just to shift for the question a little bit, on the workforce side, is there a spectrum of types of jobs you need, or is it focused on one thing or another?
I think there's a spectrum. You know, making food is really interesting. You have people that go a little bit more towards like the hospitality chef where you're, doing research, you're cooking. Then there's straight machine operation and the packaging side of it. There's a lot of mechanical and electromechanical help that goes along to keeping the lines running. We have warehousing and we have office and sales. I mean, it's sort of a full spectrum of needs. The entry-level jobs seem to be the hardest ones to fill because a lot of people honestly just don't want to do manual labor anymore. And I get some of it because like if you go on the production line, I'll go down for an hour here and an hour there. It's hard. It's great for the first 30 minutes because your mind goes blank, which when you're on a computer all day, having your mind blank is fantastic. But after a couple hours, your feet hurt, your back hurts, and you don't want to do it anymore. And so bringing that talent in is really hard. We've been trying to work on, we talked about the sort of immigration thing. We've tried to work on, as people were coming out of Afghanistan and Ukraine, like could we get people who are looking for a better life, put them up in housing. Joe and I have had conversations about building housing on site so that we had, our own apartment building for employees. That could be a use for one king. But.
Right. Jim, did you have
So
something?
a couple of things. The cold storage issue is a huge issue. Yale University came to us. They want to buy local source vegetables and produce. But once they knocked down New Haven, we had no place to put it. So they're not, that didn't happen. And then I believe it's Lyman who is now sending their apples out of state to be processed during harvest season and being stored in New York. So there's demand here. There's just no one filling that demand.
There's absolutely demand here, and yes, nobody is filling that
It's
demand.
expensive to build.
It's expensive to ship it also to these places.
All right, so here's my other big problem, is utilities.
Yeah.
So, and you talk about Meriden, like the one place where we got really close to leaving Meriden is for our neighbors in Wallingford. I mean, it is really attractive when you spend millions of dollars a year on utility bills and somebody says, hey, you want to pay 50%? And you're like, that sounds like a really good deal. It is, I don't know, I guess I sort of understand how they did it. I don't know if there's ever a way that Meriden could get there. But, Eversource is, at the end of the day, a monopoly. I will say out loud, having worked in consulting with not Eversource, but some of the other large energy providers in the monopoly space, they have a great way of spending all the money in their budgets, and it comes through in the rates. There's no reason that, I get there's a little differential between liquid natural gas and piped in gas, so we have to pay a little bit more in the Northeast, but, they keep talking about taking, electricity generation offline, but they want to electrify the entire car network, and, we're a large consumer of electricity. Like that market to me is something I pay a lot of attention to, and Wallingford, has a distinct advantage over Meriden, but
It would be a big capital investment, for any community to try to do that. It's been many communities I've worked in, they've talked about it because Wallingford is the standard,
Yeah.
they did it a long time ago. I have another question I have. Ginny knows this story a little bit. There's a cheese manufacturing company, Leuzzi, in Hamden, who I worked religiously with for like 20 years. Helped them come, expand like 4 times, and they are an excellent company. And one time I did a little study on the supply chain, their supply chain, what they did in-house, what they farmed out in terms of whether it was trucking or cleaning and all those things. And it seems to me a quality business like yours, especially with a lot of production, I don't know how much of the total operation is done in-house versus out, but it seems like whatever is done out could be an opportunity for other businesses in Meriden
yeah.
to work with.
We do almost everything in-house. One of the things we pride ourselves on is quality food. We import all the raw ingredients. So we're bringing in, our flour comes out of North Dakota from food manufacturers that we have sort of proprietary blends. We bring it in on rail. Tomatoes come in fresh out of California. Cheeses come in from Italy. We process everything in-house. There are certain things, so like our cleaning services overnight, It's a local company, they're in Wallingford, but it's a local company that basically does all of our cleaning so that we could focus on core operations. We only have one truck. Everything else, that we do on the trucking side is basically our customers pick up. So Walmart has trucks in this area all the time. They drop off at the store, they pick up from us, and they bring it back into their distribution network. But I do think there is a lot of spin-off, and that was the point I was making around the plumbers, the electricians, the HVAC. I can't get that talent in-house. HVAC technicians are, and our HVAC is a lot different than residential HVAC. We deal with things where you're talking, 2,000 PSI, and the weld has to be absolutely perfect. So we bring a lot of that talent in, and I think that's where, we don't have the ability to bring a lot in because it's not available in the marketplace. So we bring, the services in, but I also see the services atrophying. Like there's a lot of the electricians we used to use are retiring. A lot of the plumbers that we use are retiring. The young kids that come in to be electricians want to work in new construction, housing, and apartment buildings. They don't want to work in, a factory with, 480 volt, services that are, humming next to them, because it's scary. It's a very different level of complexity.
Yeah, we've even had conversations because what was the silo? Was it for the flour or for the grain?
The silo was for flour.
It was for flour. So somebody might have wanted a little higher than what I was going to be shocked if I went from planning with, because it's ways to bring down its cost, because if you bring it in, instead of right now it's brought in on pallets and in bags, if we had a situation like that set up, which we'll get something, but it might not be the pure height.
We have a question.
Scott, if I may, other than your family history here, I'm certainly glad that Ragusino let me stay at this side of the state. What incentives did the city do to convince you to expand within the confines of Barron? I understand the history of it, I get all that, I even understand the workforce, but I'm curious if there's, and if they didn't do much, what could we do?
Yeah.
Is my question.
So I think, we're probably at the infancy of this. Some of it was forced. So I talk about these refrigeration systems, I talk about flour silos. We are big and we are heavy. The cost to move from my building to another building would be 8 digits. And as a smaller manufacturer, I can't shut down, so I'd have to buy another building, pay the note on it, which we did. I'd have to buy all new equipment and get that up and running before I shuttered what we had here. I crawled into Joe's office one day and said, help me win this fight with my uncle. You actually had a tax abatement that helped us out. That's basically going to help, alleviate that burden as we do that. I think there's other places where we need help. Talking about zoning, like there's places where the flour silos that they wanted to put in are 100 feet tall were zoned at 70 feet. We have 7 acres. If you were to look at the space that we need, and it's sort of an odd property, by the way, most of it's in the 100-year floodplain, like there's some intrinsic issues with that piece of property, but we've got to work with the city hand in hand to say, how can we make this piece of property work, in a way that's helpful? Because we are, half the property's against the residential neighborhood, and we want to be good neighbors. They like us when we're making spaghetti sauce. They hate us when we make spicy chili. But we do want to be good neighbors, and so we've got to figure out how we can grow on the piece of property that we're on without causing a massive cost to us. And a lot of that is going to buck up against zoning regulations. We were talking the other day. I was talking with our engineer. We do have it was approved, I think, in 17 for like a 50,000 square foot warehouse. Warehouses nowadays are run by robots. We would probably bring in 4 or 5 additional people that would relocate from one of the other cold storage facilities to us. But the requirements, if you just look at the straight planning and zoning requirements are, I'd have to add like 40 parking spots for that. But it doesn't make sense to add 40 parking spots when most of it is done by robots. We are, it's a very limited, it's not a human-heavy environment. And so that's a conversation that we have to come back to the city with and just say, listen, maybe we split the difference with you, but, I can't take up, or it doesn't make sense for me to have 40 parking spots. I already have enough parking spots for everybody that comes in every day. I have 15 or 20 extra every day, but if I build a 50,000 square foot building, don't penalize me by making me put parking spots in that I'm just not gonna use. And that's not a comment on the zoning, commission at all. It's just what's in the books and making sure that we can have a logical conversation that says, this really doesn't make sense in this particular instance.
Okay.
Sorry.
Thank
Scott,
Thank you, Scott.
where do your workers live?
Everywhere. we actually, we were talking about this when Blumenthal was there. We have a lot of employees that walk to work, like a tremendous amount. So you'll notice that we have turnstiles on the property. So because we make food for the military, we have the chain link fence with the barbed wire on top. But we have a lot of turnstiles because a lot of our employees walk to work or, commute very close distances. So we have a lot that are sort of right around that Lewis Avenue area. And there's some from Waterbury, some from New Britain, but mostly Meriden.
Okay, we're gonna take any additional questions now, but one of the things that's gonna happen, I don't need this, do I? You do? Okay. One of the things that's gonna happen is that we're gonna be having at least 2 more sessions. Can't see without my glasses. Three more. The next one is May 23rd, and then there's one on June 5th. And then the final one is going to be on June 27th. The next one is going to be about land use particular and about a lot of infrastructure improvements. Obviously, you have some big things going on. The one on June 5th is going to be about funding opportunities and strategies. And the final one is going to be about business attraction, retention, expansion. We have lots and lots of speakers, but we're always going to try to come back to where do we go from here. These sessions are just to share information with everyone, and there's going to be a strategic planning process at the end of everything, and we're always going to ask the speakers in any of the panels to discuss in some kind of context some of the sites that are vexing the town. One King today we talked a lot about. We didn't really talk too much about 24 Colony, which came up a lot in the last conversation, and then there's the mall. So I do think that we need to always have the speakers kind of come back to that a little bit. I don't know if any of the speakers have anything more to add about these properties. I know I kind of put you on the spot with that one, but these are the things that concern the residents of Meriden. But when I went to 24 Colony after the last meeting, I was saying you should go by there and take a look. And I know a lot of things have been tried there in the commercial, the ground floor space. But when I drove by there, the only thing I could think of was workforce development. It's the thing that really just came to my head, almost like a divining rod. You ever see somebody with a divining rod that kind of came in there and said, God, job creation. And so that was sort of emphasized a lot today from Ginny, particularly on Ginny's presentation and for what Scott was saying. So we have to keep talking about it. All of us up here are not from here, but we're going to keep focusing on these things with the speakers. Joe, do you have anything to add here?
I would just add one thing. So in New Haven, I think you're all familiar with the Coliseum site that used to be right at the exit as you came from 9195. It was shut down in 1998. It was imploded in 2007. It had a developer that had an agreement with the city of New Haven. It was a city property. After they demolished the building, that property sat vacant all the way up until last year. They have a developer now, Spinnaker, and they're building 200 units of housing. And they sold a piece of that property to a company called Ancora, who's going to build a 250,000 med tech building. And then phase 3, that building will have a parking garage and more housing. To your point, The city took care of demolishing the building. They got the new developer for the MedTech building $1 million to clean up the urban fill, because that's the contaminant. And they're doing it in phases so that they can get the financing piece right. But that shut down in 1998, and we're now in 2024. Do the RFQ.
And also, remember, the next session, 2 sessions from now, it's going to be about funding, so try to tie it all together to that point.
That's a good idea.
And we can use the Pirelli Armstrong building as well.
Would like to open it up as we did last time, if there's any questions that anyone else in the group has. Don't be shy.
Just housekeeping, when's the dates for the next couple meetings?
Yep, I have them right here. The next one is May 23rd. Everything's always Thursday at 4 o'clock. May 23rd. It's entitled Opportunities and Challenges. We'll be talking about brownfields, transportation, and land use planning. The next one after that is June 5th, Funding Opportunities and Strategies. And the last one is June 27th, Business Retention and Attraction. Kind of pick up from Lisa's presentation and talk more about that with other trade organizations here.
That information is also in the little booklet, just a one-page folded booklet on the table over there if you need it.
Yeah. Sorry, Joe. Just one comment.
I know you as well as I know him, so I do.
Yeah, you could tell. So we talked about 1 King Street, and Scott, I want your opinion on it, because I like where your mindset. So we talked about 1 King Street, and yeah, what's ever gonna go there? I don't know, I totally agree, but I can tell you that when you put a brand new turf field over on Britannia Street, the kids are out there playing all the time. So have we ever looked to repurpose some of our parks? Let's think out of the box. Let's say, hey, right off the highway is Columbus Park. Up to 91 is Ben Nessing Field. Let's bring the fields to where people, manufacturing and commercial space doesn't want to come. And let's bring, downtown, and let's redevelop those park spaces in others. I know parks are taboo, I understand all that, I get all that. But in lieu of where we're at, sometimes you have to, even a turtle has to, stick his head out once in a while and move forward, And I agree with you, it's not desirable, 1 King Street, it's just not, even when you level it down. I'm not saying you could put a softball field there, I don't know, that's, you know what I mean? But repurpose it for, and then look at the city inventory and say, what is more valuable in this location than what we currently have? And I think that could spur potential economic growth, because it's not us that's gonna decide where these companies relocate, it's going to be them. And it's location matters to them. So it's just a thought.
To your point, I believe I mentioned it, if I didn't, I apologize, but last time when we talked about Old King, I did some research and we went out and I found a company, and like everything else costs money. I mean, I brought, I have 2 proposals, anywhere from $28,000 to $52,000 to do a study on that site for a domed indoor sports complex.
Yeah.
Different use. We do have to start, and through Mike on our economic development committee, I know I talked with him as we're doing this, and it's something we'll look and see if we pursue or not. But we are trying to think out of the box for these things, because if you just stay in the box, I mean, you look at, IKEA sat with Pirelli for years for reasons. We as a city have learned a lesson, and I'm sure Mike would be okay with me saying is, if we own something and let somebody develop it going forward, I'm putting in clause that were no one's fault. It's the way things were done back then. But we're putting in a clause that if you're going to take something from us and we're giving you money, you're filling it and you're doing what we're asking you to do. If you cannot find a tenant, that's a different story. But if you're not helping the situation, then that's where we should be able to come back, at which we do not have the authority or
Like
That's
the,
it.
like
And
the
to
old
your,
medical
and to your
center, I'll
point,
say
it made me think what I said before, there's just, with the exception of successful businesses like Scott's, who has very specific needs, like cold storage, there's just not as much space needed as there once was. I mean, so some of these buildings that are not gonna have a lot of takers for hundreds of thousands of square feet, so something like that, or the dome
Yeah.
recreation is a good idea.
You know, Barron's fortunate.
I'm gonna put on my like old school, well, a lot of you probably don't know who McKinsey is, but we were the bad consultants. And we were known as being fairly ruthless. I look at this situation and I go, the city has a lot of conversations about this. There's talk about spending $6.4 million to take the building down so you have a field so you can potentially get rid of it. My stance is like, who cares? You could spend $6.4 million to actually develop, if you gave me $6.4 million in Ragazzino's, I could add 50 jobs in 2 years. I would have tax base that's coming in. But you're having a conversation, and I get that it's an eyesore, but like I think at some point you have to look at it and say, is it worth spending $6.4 million? Can you find a way out? Can you say, we'll give a developer $2 million to take it off our hands, put the clause in there that they gotta pay the taxes on it so you get your tax base back, and let the developers do the developing and stay out of the market. Like, focus on what you're good at, focus on growing the economy. Don't spend money trying to solve every problem that the developers have.
I think,
That's part of it. So, I would like, as part of the trio, to say thank you very much to our speakers. I would like to point out that the city of Barron has worked with both organizations very well, and they've helped us tremendously, and we look forward to doing things with them in the future as well. So, and thank you for Scott and Ragazzino's for coming in and talking today and bringing a real estate perspective for us that Meriden is tough to sell sometimes, and we appreciate you giving us all the facts and everything else and talking about that. There is some food in the back. As mentioned before, we gave you the dates of the next 3. So again, I'd like to say thank you very much. We try to keep them pretty timely. So please enjoy the food.